Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. Happy sunny Friday. I hope it's sunny wherever you are. It's sunny in Berlin. And I'm happy to be back with Zoe Noble today.
Hello, lovely to be back.
Yes, we're very excited that you came back to talk a little bit about photography, about your personal projects today. It's going to be more about inspiration, some career advice, because I know you've been given great advice. I mean, we even talked before about, I don't know, lighting and what it takes to become a professional photographer, the different journeys people have. So really excited to talk about that. And also you're going to show us one of your personal projects later on. So if anyone has any questions already, please come over to the chat because we're on Behance. So if you're on YouTube, just come over to Behance and join us there. I have the chat open. So if you have any questions to Zoe, just send them over. But first up, I have a question. Personally, I have so many questions to you because you're such an amazing photographer and very inspired by everything you do. So my first question, very open, broad question is, how did you get into photography and when was the first encounter for you?
So yeah, it's been a bit of a long journey to get here. You know, I picked up a camera in my 30s. So my previous career was as a graphic and web designer. And, you know, I bought a camera when I traveled from London to Berlin and moved over here, bought a camera to document my new life in a new country, and quickly realized that this was actually the thing that I was passionate about. This was the thing I was meant to do. So that got me really excited because, you know, I was passionate to try and make this a full-time thing, but, you know, we can get there. But I had a few years of just getting to grips with everything, but that was how I got into it. Yeah.
So when you got into photography, you were taking photos of like street photography or just your day-to-day life?
Exactly. Street photography. You know, my husband and I, when we came to Berlin, we set up a blog about Berlin. And I had the perfect excuse to take photos of, you know, where we were traveling to and just street photography. So, you know, I also started shooting street style at fashion weeks. So I was in love with natural light and using, you know, the sun but it was great. It was a great kind of baptism of fire because it was just like, okay, I can shoot anything and everything outside. And that was it. That got me kind of into the mode of, you know, shooting and experimenting.
That's amazing. And when did you make the change to like more studio lighting, fashion photography? Because that's what you do now. Like, when did that happen?
So I got into fashion. Fashion has always kind of been important to me, fashion and beauty. And I studied fashion marketing at university, and that was my degree. And I thought I was always going to be in the fashion industry. I wasn't sure where, but I actually discovered Photoshop in my last year of university. And for my marketing final year project, I used Photoshop to create a rebrand of how we could make organ donation more palatable, how we could make more people want to help others and donate their organs. And that project got me hooked into Photoshop. And from that, I was able to get a job working for fashion brands, but actually designing, which I had no experience of prior to that. So that's how my background in fashion has always been there, really. So I continued, working as a web designer for fashion brands and publication houses like Condé Nast. And so I always had my foot in the fashion world, but I was doing a completely different career in front of a computer. So, when I came to Berlin, I picked up that camera. I didn't yet realize really that I should probably be shooting what I love. I was just so excited to learn photography and learn all the skills with it. So I actually, my first experience of my first commercial jobs was in product and interior, because a friend of ours was looking for a photographer for their interior company, and I threw myself in. I didn't really know what I was doing, but I knew I could learn. This is one thing that I'm really passionate about, is education and learning. And that I soaked up as much information as I could, and did that job, and it went well. And I've shot for the next maybe 3-4 years as an interior and product photographer. And it's only in the last 2 years that I've really wanted to go back to where my heart more is, which is connecting with people, and whether that's through fashion or beauty or portraits with my personal projects. Like, I actually love that connection. So it's kind of a new-ish thing that I'm exploring now, but I'm loving it,
And you were talking about learning and like learning more about photography. And I think even last time we spoke, you said you were self-taught. So what are your tools to learn more about photography? What advice could you give to someone that is just starting out? And also, one personal question on top of all these questions that I'm already throwing at you is, how do you separate bad advice from good advice? Because that's something that I've struggled a little bit with. I think when I started out, when I watched YouTube tutorials and thought, oh, this is how it works. Yeah. And then later being like, this was not how it goes, and this is not an advice you should listen to, because there are some good tutorials and bad. But do you think there is a way to differentiate the two?
I think you have to find the right educators. And I did this because I'm self-taught. I have never assisted. I had to learn through trial and error, practice, failing lots, and you can do it. You can teach yourself anything, because we have the amazing internet at our fingertips. So I'm so grateful for the people who did share their knowledge, on YouTube tutorials or in books. But absolutely, there are things that you learn that, because maybe the people who share that knowledge, they don't know fully, or maybe they don't connect with, your aesthetic. And I would suggest that anyone who's finding that information online, you have to look at who is the educator, who are they working for? Because there's many educators out there who, they're not actually working for many commercial clients. They're not actually being paid to shoot or maybe retouch. They're actually just able to put out tutorials, which anyone can. And that's a good and a bad thing. So I would say, first, check out the credentials. Are they working professionally? Do they have a list of brands and clients that you go like, okay, this person knows what they're doing? And really that will keep you in the right direction. And, because I had it at the beginning, learning from YouTube, I learned some bad techniques. And now, after 3, 4, 5 years now of retouching, I now know the industry standards. I know what the guys and the girls at the top are doing, but I see so much bad information regarding retouching, especially out there on YouTube. And that's what we have to wade through to get to it. So yeah, check out who the educator is.
Yeah. Sure. That's amazing. Also, I'm just looking at the chat, really practicing my multitasking here. But also Allison said, which I think is amazing, I really relate to Zoe as a background, and she has a background in fashion too. And she picked up a camera at 49. Wow. So it's never too late. I mean, for all your dreams, I say, like, not just for photography, it's never too late. If you want to do it, do it. There is no age limitation to anything, basically.
No.
And also someone else asked in the chat, which I find a bit funny, if you're from Manchester?
No. No, I'm from Newcastle. So I am a northerner, but a bit more north than that. So nice try.
And there are also some really lovely people, Vincent, Sean, Andreas, Christy. I see Sebastian is here. Hi, Sebastian, Caroline, Linda. We have a lot of people joining today, which is amazing. Welcome, everyone. If you have questions, send them over.
Yes.
So I think it's really important to point out this self-taught thing, because I feel like a lot of people have this image in their head that you have to go to a school, you have to get a certain degree to be successful, to be professional in any sort of profession. At least I used to have that mindset that it is possible to teach yourself or find resources to then work on whatever you want to achieve. And you can do that just by trying and working and not having to go to a school for it. So next thing I wanted to talk about, because you also mentioned it, was assisting, because I know you already gave some really good advice on Instagram about people wanting to assist, because that's for some people the way of learning a lot of things. So do you get a lot of requests for people that want to assist you, or do you have any advice for people that maybe want to find a photographer that they could assist? Or
yeah, I do get a lot of requests, and that was something that, yeah, I didn't also give that as a suggestion. You know, when I was learning, I did contact photographers, but it was difficult because I lived in another country where I hadn't learned the language properly. So I was in that process of learning, so I couldn't contact people in German, and I know that absolutely hindered my my contacting. So because I couldn't assist, I just had to do it myself, and I did it. But I would absolutely recommend for anyone who is wanting to learn that assisting can be an amazing way if you find the person who wants to help you. And it's absolutely worth trying and assisting, because the stuff that I learned over those first 2-3 years myself, through trial and error and failing and all of that, I could have learned that maybe in 2 months if I had assisted. So yes, you have both routes. Nothing is impossible for sure, but absolutely try it. So when people do contact me about assisting, I'm always looking for people who put in that extra effort to show me really where is their value. Because if I have hundreds and hundreds of emails from people, how do I choose someone? And for me, the way that I would choose a person is, what do they bring to my set? Do they have any other skills that would help me? Do they retouch? Do they know any studio lighting? And I'm not looking for someone who's super proficient, because I don't mind helping people. But what I am looking for is for someone who's really eager to learn, and who's taken some time to add on to their own skills if they can. When I was first learning, I learned studio lighting in my spare time on the weekends. I was doing my job as a graphic designer and a web designer full-time, but on the side of doing the studio lighting stuff. So it's possible. It requires a lot of work, but I love that when I see someone who's like, I don't know everything, but I am learning, I'm trying. I'm like, okay, this person really cares. So when you contact photographers, absolutely say something that you like about their work. Show them that you have taken the time to look at what they do and why would you love to work for them. Keep it short. Explain what value you bring to that photographer, why they should basically choose you, and just spell check it, polite and professional. Really, those are really simple things, but you'd be surprised at how many people contact me, don't use my first name. They're blasting out emails left, right, and center. And we know this. We can see that instantly. Yeah. So just spend a little bit of time on it for sure.
Yeah. Sebastian has a really good question. He asked, what skills do you need to have to be able to assist a pro?
So there are different levels for sure. So, if you're talking about really big photography jobs where I would need, we call them a digitech. So that is someone who's managing basically the digital side, the capture one, the processing of the making sure the photos are coming in and they're backing up. So that is one role that you can have on set. Then there's the lighting assistant, and then there's just the extra assistant to help. So really there's lots of different areas you can look at, but if you're just starting, you may not know all of that stuff. So really, having a basic knowledge of studio lighting is great. Just whether that is, you rented some lights, every weekend for a few months, and you got to grips with how does this work? You understand the basics of that. That helps so much, because obviously as a busy photographer to bring someone into the studio and to explain simple things like, this is a modifier, this is a softbox. Those are the things that I just wouldn't have time for. So I think having some basic proficiency in studio lighting is amazing. And really that's what I would be looking for if I needed someone on set to help me set up lights and things like that, for sure.
Yeah, that I completely understand. Also, it's an unrelated question, but before I forget, I just have it here. And Lee is asking, how are you able to judge when to stop retouching? Where is the fine line? Do you get others to review, or do you just decide by yourself?
So this is also a process, and I think we can get so kind of set on I need to know this overnight with photography and retouching, and it's a process to train your eye. And with retouching, at the beginning you go too far. You haven't trained your eye what looks good, what doesn't look good, and the only way to do that is by looking at amazing magazines and editorials, looking at what people at the top of the industry are doing, and you have that as your like guiding star. So you know they're not removing all of the texture. There is moles and blemishes on some photos, like they leave a lot more than actually the beginner retouchers take away. So I think look and have a guide of where you're aiming at, and that will input your work that you do. And also give yourself that exposure and time, because I promise you, when you get into retouching, you develop so much. I have a YouTube tutorial, a YouTube channel, and the videos that I posted 4 years ago, I cringe at them because I'm like, you have progressed so much in that time. I leave them up because the techniques are solid and I want to help people. But it's amazing when you go back and look at where you were, how you have trained yourself to do less and to really kind of leave more of the authenticity in the photos as well. So it takes time, but you can, definitely have visuals to help you.
Yeah, for sure. And do you sometimes take, because for me, I sometimes just have to leave a photo maybe overnight and then look at it again in the morning, because just staring at the same image for hours, you lose, not lose your mind, that's too much, but like I lose sense of, does this look good?
Yeah.
Or is this just because you're so absorbed in this image after hours that it's, for me personally, really important to just step back a little bit.
Absolutely. Take regular breaks. And, your eye, it changes, how you perceive color changes over time of you looking at something. So you have to take breaks. You have to, when I've shot something, I don't retouch it immediately. I want to have time and breathing space. Then when I come to it, then I do the selection process. Then I leave it again and I come back to it another few days later. And I like giving myself time so I can look at it in a different way. And with the retouching, I am having regular breaks. Once every, half an hour to an hour, I'm standing up, I'm going away, coming back. If I do a color grade, I will not, finish it. I will leave it and go back the next day and check, is it finished? Do I want to change it? And I look on it in different devices. I look on it on my calibrated monitor. I look at it on my mobile, on my, my laptop. I look at it in different scenarios and double check. This is now finished because yes, I am happy with it across these devices. Because that's another thing we can get kind of confused about, what it looks like on different platforms and everything. So
yeah. I never done that. That's a really good advice, because I only do it on my computer and then walk away. But actually, if you think about it, if you want to put it on your website, a lot of people maybe look at it on their phones or iPads or other devices as well.
Exactly. Most people are looking at it on their phones. So and if it's obviously for a commercial client, the calibrated monitor is the most important thing. If it's going to print, that's what matters to me. But for sure, for anything for myself that I know it's on mobile, or I'm double checking it on there as well.
Yes. We have another question coming in from Michael asking if you ever found a good tutorial or book about lighting, because he thinks the only answer he usually gets is try and error.
So, there's a great book, which is actually about product photography. So I'm not sure what industry you're in, but for me, I learned still so much for product and everything else, because it's about how lighting works in different scenarios with reflections. It's called Light Science Magic, and I can't remember the author's name, but
I have it here.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I've got it somewhere as well. So it is a very product-based book, but it's incredible. The techniques that I learned when I started my career in interior and products, I still utilize those today when I shoot fashion or portrait, because to me, it's a person or a product. It's how do I manipulate the light? How do I make it work with that's exactly the one. So really you can just learn a lot from checking out that book. Apart from that, it is, I learned the most by doing. So for me, it was renting a modifier for a weekend and using that modifier and roping in a friend to shoot, and testing it in every which way possible and bouncing it and then putting more diffusion over it. It was looking at what other people were doing that I loved and trying to dissect, how are they doing this? Where I was analyzing the photo, where is the main light coming from? What is the catch light? So where is the light coming from? Is there some fill coming in here? Is there some blackboard? And I would try and replicate that, not to copy it, but to understand the process. And when you do that, you learn so much, and then you can take that into creating your own work. So that was another good thing I did.
Yeah, I don't know if you do that, but I do it often, where I zoom in on the eyes of the model. And then I'm like, what modifier is that? Is that an octa box? Is this a soft box?
I did, but it's very common for retouchers and photographers to change the catch light. When I learned that, I was like, oh no, that's a worry. So,
and obviously you can't see all the light sources in the eyes. So
no, exactly. So it can help you, but also you can go, I do not understand. How has this person lit this? Yes. It's, what it looks like there's 5 lights, but there's only one catch light. So you got to be warned.
Exactly. And there's you don't see the reflector from the bottom, and you're like, how is this possible that the chin is not in the, what is yeah, but I still do it all the time. When I see a photo that I really like and I like the setting, I'm like, I'll try to find out if I can see the studio setup in the eyes of the model.
Oh yes. No, it's my go-to as well, definitely.
Yeah. Then Nicholas has a question. What is your process to find balance with the elements in your image, like styling, makeup, etc.?
So for me, I really try and keep it simple. So I'm balancing. If the styling is the hero of the shot, then I'm keeping the makeup and everything else pared down. If the makeup is the hero, I'm paring down the styling and the lighting. So I'm always trying to let one thing be the focal point. And that generally gives me a lot. It balances so much more, because at the beginning, I was so excited about doing everything. I would have, crazy lighting, then crazy makeup, then crazy styling. And you add all of that up and it looks intense. So now I really try and pull back and just go, what is the point of this photo? What is the hero and the focus? Let that be the hero and let everything else complement it. And that generally works for me.
Yeah. One other question I have, since we're talking about makeup and styling, how did you go about finding, because I think you work with a team mostly, or with a group of people that you work on a lot of projects with. How did you find the people that you're working with now?
Instagram has been amazing. In the last few years, it's been such an incredible resource to find those people who you like their aesthetic, and you can connect so easily with people, and using hashtags to find people in your area. So, one of my favorite makeup artists who I work with, she found me on Instagram and we were able to connect, and now she's an integral part to my process. And it's amazing that Instagram has given so many creatives this power to be able to connect with people. So absolutely search the hashtags and find someone who you connect with on the aesthetic, because sometimes you also can get too excited about just shooting anything. Whereas I find that if you're going to spend time, building a team up, you have to kind of be in the same area. You have to kind of like the same things visually, and it just speeds everything up if you find those people who match where you're at in your level of, in your career, and also aesthetic, basically.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Even though I find it quite difficult to, I think a lot of people might find it a bit difficult to find a team that you can work with on multiple projects, because it is a very, like, you have to be on the same page regarding a lot of things, not just the creative aspect, just how the way you work, the availability, the openness to new projects. There are a lot of aspects that go into working together, which I find really interesting.
Definitely. And it'll take you time to find the right people, and it can be easy as well to rely on one person or a couple of other people, but you have to push yourself to find those people. And it may not work sometimes, but that's okay. I think the photographers that succeed are the ones that keep trying and maybe failing, but they keep going. So just keep going.
Yes, absolutely. And also, before we go into your personal projects, I wanted to ask you a little bit about career advice you would give to people that are just making the jump from, I'm doing this part-time, I'm working on the side, I'm trying to learn all about lighting and retouching, and they think they're at the point where they can make the jump. Like, first question, how did you decide when you were ready to do that? Mm-hmm. And second, what advice would you give someone that is at that point right now?
So for me, I was ready to take the jump when I had more work coming from photography than web design or graphic design. So, I was doing both jobs for a period of maybe a year and a half, 2 years, where it was a lot of work for sure, but I had to have that safety net. So once it started to be a tipping point of I can live off my photography work now, I don't need the web design work, I took that jump, but I absolutely had savings. So I would say to anyone, you should have a safety net for sure, because the beginning is the hardest. You need to build up the clients, and hopefully if you give yourself that kind of time to, you've got your 9 to 5, the day job, or you have savings, then you have that kind of cushion to, build the contacts, build the clients, learn the skills, you can rent gear, because we need a bit of money when we're getting into photography. We got to buy the gear, we got to, rent some lights, all of this thing. So having that cushion financially makes it possible for it to be sustainable at the beginning, for sure. So I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah. And just because follow-up question on building a client base, and what is your advice on how do you find clients you want to work with? How do you reach out to them? What do you think is best practice to building a client base for people that are just starting out?
So obviously it depends on, which industry you want to work in, but always I am telling people, you need to follow your passion and your heart about, what matters to you, because we have thousands and thousands of photographers, and we need to stand out from all of those people. So the only way you can stand out as a photographer is to represent you in your photos. So for me, I'm using my knowledge with my fashion experience, with my design experience, my composition and my graphics and all of that. And I use that in my photography to hopefully set myself apart. So for anyone out there who's trying to work out, like, how do you find clients, you need to know what are you about, visually, aesthetically, passion wise, what are you about? And then when you know who you are, then you find the clients who are on exactly the same page as you. And you'll have, what I have is 3 kind of tiers of clients. I'll have my dream clients at the top. Those are like the big hitters, the really huge clients. Then I'll have the middle group, which are more attainable, when I'm starting out maybe. But then below that, I'll have the lower tier, which is maybe more local to me. So when I'm first starting out, I'll be going for the lower tier, and they are amazing because I'm able to build relationships, practice my skills, earn money. And they may not be exactly in the same aesthetic as, like, say, the dream clients, but they're in the same wheelhouse. So for me as a beauty photographer, fashion, I would be looking for local fashion brands and trying to build a network with those people at the very beginning. So that would be building your team and making sure that you have everything in place so that you can create beautiful photos for the people in your local area. And then you're going to start stepping up. And, eventually you're going to get to the point where the people who you work with are even better. You are also even better. And then when you have the work that is, where you want to be dream client wise, that's when you contact those clients. So, regarding contacting people and building relationships is the most important thing for photographers. And as creatives, it can be really difficult to put yourself out there to, actually approach people. We just want to do the work a lot of the time, but marketing is the most important aspect of being a photographer. The shooting, probably second. So marketing wise, it's about finding those people. LinkedIn is an incredible resource, and you're finding the people who work in those companies, and you are then following them on Instagram, and you start engaging with them. And you're not going to be weird or creepy, but you are going to be naturally engaging with them, so they can see you and go, oh, okay, who's this person? And then when you build that kind of relationship online, and that could take a few months, that's when you then contact them with an email, which is telling them how you can solve a problem that they have. Because ultimately, as photographers, we are problem solvers. So, whether that is they could add more motion into their website, or maybe they could have, more cleaner photography to represent the product, whatever it is, you are going to fill that spot. And that's where you pitch to that client and say, hey, I do this. Here's my mood board. I'm available to do this. I would love to work with you. And that's the process really of how you would get into getting those commercial clients.
Yeah. So. I completely agree. And I think it's so important to point out that is a really long process. Like people, I think sometimes expect you just, I don't know, write an email to your dream client and they're going to get back to you the next week and everything's going to be great. And it's just, this takes, I mean, don't want to exaggerate, but it can take years. And there's going to be so much rejection. Yeah. Like I have this rule of like sending at least 5 emails a month to people that I don't know. Yeah. And I can't count the times where I've not gotten any response. Like it's just, I think, important for people to normalize that that's just part of the process. That doesn't mean you're really like your work is not good or that you shouldn't keep going, but it's just, it's so much work and time that goes into these things.
Yes.
And it's completely like everyone goes through that. I guess every photographer that I know and also people that I look up to, it's really calming to know everyone went through this process. I don't know anyone that wrote this one email and then skyrocketed and everything was fine.
No, absolutely not. I heard somewhere that, it can take like 8 touch points before someone actually goes, oh, we know this person now, we will give them a chance. So like that could be 8 emails that you're contacting. And, we have to, you're right, get used to people saying no. And that's okay. That just means you're one step closer to getting towards the yes. So just gotta keep trying,
Yeah. And also just know that you're not the only one that gets to know, because I feel like so often we just celebrate the success stories and we see, for example, on Instagram and on people's websites, the jobs that they get, because obviously that's what you can show. Yes. But there's so many moments where people don't get the job or people get rejected, which I completely understand is nothing you feel very excited about sharing. Or like I personally don't usually. I'm like, I want to share the good things. And then when it comes about the bad things, it's not the first instinct to just share that with the world. But for me personally, it's really important to put that out there so people don't feel discouraged, that it's not easy and you have to get used to a little bit hearing no, but not losing passion. Hearing people not, or like getting no answer or getting a no and still believing in yourself to keep going. Because otherwise, I think that's differentiating also people that do it as a hobby or do it because they want to do it in their free time. Or if you want to do it professionally, you have to be okay with people telling you no and still keep going.
Absolutely. And that is one thing I would love to get across, that, some people, it's okay if it's just a hobby, because like ultimately we have to work out what is the balance we want. Because when photography was my hobby, it was completely different to now it being a professional career. There's more pressure. There's less moments now where I can just take my camera and just, have some simple shoots out on the street, because I'm less motivated, because it becomes my job. Mm-hmm. So for many people, it actually might work better for them to keep it as their hobby, where they love it and, it's their safe space, then add on all of the extra baggage that comes with turning it into a career. So, this is something we also need to encourage people to look at, like, what do they want from it? Because being a professional photographer, it's difficult. It's not easy. You have to, it's blood, sweat and tears for sure.
Yes.
And it's a long process, like anything really. But, I just would love people to realize that it's okay as well to shoot in their spare time, because, that can be so fun.
Yeah. Absolutely. And before we get into your personal project, because I think it's also amazing that you still have passion projects, and I've been trying to get to this point, but still there's one really cool question that I want to ask you before we get into that, which is, which photographers from our time now or the past inspire you and your work?
So right now, one of my favorites is Felicity Ingram, and she is based in London, and she shoots beauty and portraits. She shoots all on film. So this is something that, I'm so in awe of those photographers who, they not only do it as a career, but they also shoot on film in their career, because that's a whole different ballgame. And this is something I really want to maybe get into this year. But her work is stunning, absolutely stunning. Who else do I love? Gosh, there's so many photographers on Instagram that I follow, and sometimes it's tough, if you follow people on Instagram and you see, oh my gosh, they're incredible, it can make you worry about, will I ever get to that level? So sometimes I try and not follow too many as well. Really, for me, she is like at the top for me, as like where I would love to get my work to. So if anyone is interested, go check out her work. I think she's incredible, and she's such a lovely person. I contacted her on Instagram, and she was so sweet, and we just had a lovely conversation about, as women in this industry, and how sometimes it can be difficult. And she was just so open and honest. And I was like, oh, thank God, she's actually a lovely person as well.
Yeah, which I think is also such an important aspect of being a freelancer. And it's also about you as a person. It's not only about your work. It's also how reliable are you, how nice you are to be around. There are so many aspects that go into working as a creative, not just knowing how to operate a camera, which sometimes people think it sounds so easy, but it's really difficult.
No, we've got to wear many hats.
Yes, absolutely. It's a whole business that you have to run yourself, basically.
Oh, yes.
Okay, I don't want to ignore these questions, even though I really want to talk about your project, but there's another question about if you shoot in medium format for your fashion.
No, but this is one thing that I have my eye on a camera that I want to get this year, and that's the ultimate goal, is to go into this kind of world of analog photography. Because I love my digital camera, but I've only really used 35mm film when I was shooting street stuff, and I've never really done anything in the studio with film photography. So it's something that I want to explore, and just see, how this process is different, because it slows you down. And one thing for anyone who's getting into photography, I would definitely suggest getting a really cheap, film camera, and it really changes how you view the world, because you have to slow down. There's no firing off thousands of photos. You've got to really think about, your composition, the story you want to tell. And I actually love that about analog. So that's the goal this year. So let's see if I do it.
Yeah. David is asking, what do you see as the technical advantages of film versus digital, which is basically what you already kind of answered.
The technical, for me, there's just this kind of different emotion that you can see with analog photography. And especially because it does slow the process down. It's different. It's like, you capture a moment and you see the rawness in that image as well. Obviously people can retouch film photos, but it's not it's not like you're going to get overly retouched, or you're going to embrace the imperfections, which is another thing that I'm really excited about, to explore more of that, because in a world where we retouch and retouch and retouch, and lots of people over retouch, we're removing so much of the beauty in the imperfections. So that's one thing I can really truly see with analog photography, that you embrace those more.
Yeah, I'm always so impressed by people that do street photography with analog street photography, because you really have to capture this one moment. Like you have 1 second, and if they get that moment of like a person smiling at the camera just by walking past them, I'm mind blown. That is amazing.
Yeah, the skill level is pretty incredible, really, for sure. That's, yeah.
You really have to train your eye to see what's going on around you and what photo you want to take. But finally, let's talk about your personal project, because you not only work as for your clients and stuff, but you also have your personal projects. And I really want to know why did you decide to do personal projects? What is the project about? How did you come up with the idea? Everything around it.
Okay. So yeah, for a working photographer, I think personal work is so important, because, your personal work is a representation of you, and being able to control everything, it just puts your stamp on the photos. With commercial work, there's many other people who want, it this way, that way, and you have to take those opinions into consideration. But with personal work, it's all you. And often personal work can lead to commercial work, because people want to see who you are, what are you about, and what are you passionate about. And if you just shoot job after job after job, it's not really showing exactly what you're about and what your passion is about. So when I'd been shooting for about 5 years commercially, and I was missing that opportunity like I had before I became a professional, in just taking my camera, using natural light, going exploring the world, and just it all being on me, and me having to decide everything. So I was thinking about things that were very important to me. And one of the subjects that, was really important to me was, as a woman who has decided not to have children, I have faced, lots of judgments in my life for that decision, whether that's rude comments or, prying questions. And I was thinking, this is something that I could do with my camera. I could share the stories of women who've decided not to have children, and I could show the world that, we don't all hate children. We just are choosing a different path in life, and there's nothing wrong with that. We're not abnormal. We're not broken. So it was kind of first to maybe help other women see that they're not alone. If I could show those other women that there are many of us out there, because I always knew that I didn't want children. But I didn't ever say it until in my 30s, because no one around me said that. Everyone said, when are you going to have children? And I married quite young, and they were like, when's the kids coming? When they're coming? And without anyone else saying it out loud, it was quite scary. And obviously with, the way the media portrays women who don't want children, it's often quite negative. We are career hungry. We hate kids. And so it's quite a thing to say to people who especially might have children. I just don't want children. So yeah, it was a way to show other women that you're not alone, that you are absolutely normal, and to change or challenge the negative preconceptions that we have about women who've decided not to have children. And it's been incredible. It's been something that, truly is changing my life, because the messages that I receive from women all over the world make me realize how important something like this is. So I'm really honored that I get to do this,
Yeah. And you've been taking portraits of women that contacted you, or you contact, to basically build a community, because I've seen some amazing portraits, and I think you're going to show us some that you've taken before. So how's your approach to finding people you work with on your personal projects?
So yeah, when I first came to Germany and I started that blog, the very last post on that blog a few years ago was basically a shout out to people saying, I'm going to do this project, and I would love to know if anyone wanted to take part. From there, I had 300 women contacted me. So I already had an amazing resource of women who were ready to be photographed, ready to be, have their story shared. So that was a huge help. And then as soon as I put this out there, I have a page on the website that says you can share your story. And because I'm now doing a podcast as well, it means I'm not stuck, because the pandemic has obviously put a little bit of a spanner in the works for me traveling. So the podcast is the way to be able to speak to those women who are in areas of the world that I may never get to, but I'll be able to at least share their story on the podcast.
Yeah. Can you show us some of the photos? Because I think it would be really nice to see some of those.
So let's have a look. So I ask each woman, where is a place in where they live? So right now it's Berlin. Where is a place that they love and feel represents themselves well? So here is Amy at Tempelhof Gardens in Berlin, which is these beautiful community gardens where people, they have their own space, but it's also a shared area. So you can go into this area and explore all of these amazing plants, and it's just such a beautiful area in summer especially. And Amy is like an environmentalist, so it's really important to her. Nature is so important to her. So this is kind of a perfect representation of who she is and what matters to her. So I just got to shoot a little bit, photos, and I'm also exploring video with her as well. And it was super fun, really fun.
That's amazing. Also, Sandrine also is like, I think already people starting in the chat also sharing that they get asked about why they don't have children, that people assume that they're selfish. And I think it's just a really important topic, because I have to admit, before I saw your project, I had not seen anyone addressing it.
Right.
At least I don't think so. But I think it's so important for people, like for women in this scenario, like to support each other.
Yes.
Like, because I assume like it can be really lonely if you think you're just the only one feeling this way, and you think you should feel different because society tells you to.
Absolutely. And I mean, when I was looking at the child-free, communities that were out there, a lot of them were more negative towards people having children. And my stance on that is that this is actually just sharing our stories, and I don't want anyone to judge anyone else, because we face judgment. So I do not want to judge people with kids. I want to show women that they do have a choice as well, and that it's okay if you don't have that desire to have children. There's nothing wrong with that at all. So we just need to show the world that, we're actually a really positive force in the world. Lots of the women I speak to, they're incredible aunties. They're incredible environmentalists, because they have more time and energy and money, because we do have more disposable income, to kind of foster communities around them and, help their social issues around as well. So we are actually an incredibly positive force in the world, but it's changing that narrative that has been pushed on us from, time begun, really, that if we aren't producing children, what are we here for? Which is, a ridiculous statement, really.
Yeah. And I love that you combined like your passion for photography, because that is something I find so inspiring, when people find their creative passion, but also, let's say, an issue, a social issue, or an important matter that they think they want to support or draw attention to, and then combine these two things to bring visibility to things that affect your own life. Like, you portray your own reality to show it to other people, because I feel like photography is a lot about, we show our reality to other people, so more people see more different realities that are maybe not their own, to become more open to different ways of living.
Exactly. And I think those projects that you work on that really represent what matters to you, they're the ones that are, they not only maybe change the world in some small way, or, but also if you are thinking about, things can happen from this. Like, I don't know where this will take me, but I'm really excited because, you know, I now have this kind of drive to help an area that means so much to me, you know, like I had this experience when I was younger of feeling alone, and just knowing that there are women now looking at these stories or listening to the podcast and they don't feel alone anymore. It's incredible. So I can earn my money with the commercial clients and pay my bills, but I can also feed more of my soul and help a little bit if I can, which is so important to me, you know?
Yeah. No, I think that's amazing, because I think it shows in the project itself as well when there is so much passion behind it, and that draws people to these projects. It's something that when people work out of passion for a subject, you can see that. At least I think you can see that someone is really passionate about a certain topic, which I think absolutely shows in your work, and it's really inspiring to follow your personal project. And you mentioned you have a podcast now as well, like just so we know where people can check out everything about it.
Okay. Yeah. So it is, the title is We Are Child Free. So basically you can search for that wherever you listen to podcasts and it will come out. And we've had, I think 4 episodes now, and it's, you know, bi-weekly. And I mean, I've got so many women's stories to share. So there is no end in sight, really. You know, my goal is to represent as many different types of women as possible, of all ages. You know, last week's podcast was a 22-year-old woman who knew from, you know, a really young age. And I would love to have someone in a much older generation, because we know right now women, we have more of a choice than we ever had. It's not perfect, and many women don't have that choice in certain countries, which is something we need to change, you know. But the women who are, you know, older, who they are the trailblazers, you know, the women who actually lost their jobs for saying out loud they didn't want children. And that's someone who I'm really excited. There's a woman who, she lost her job as a teacher because she went on the American TV show 60 Minutes saying she didn't want children. And it's like, wow, you know, this is crazy. So I'm really excited. So yeah, if anyone is interested, you can check it out on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or anywhere, really.
That's amazing. And that's also kind of already answered my next question, but a little bit like, what's your idea? Where should this go? What is your perfect scenario where this project could end up? What are opportunities that you wish can happen in the future? How do you want it to develop?
So many plans. I mean, you know, my next thing is connecting the beauty world that I kind of do in the commercial realm and connecting it with this. Like, what I would love to do is maybe do something representing more women of different ages, sizes, color. You know, I really want that to come through, because one thing that always comes through in my work is I want women to feel empowered, and I want them to live their lives however they want to live them. But shooting in the beauty and the fashion world, I am very, very aware of how women over a certain age, women of a certain color, women of a certain shape, we are dismissed, you know. And this is why I embrace my gray hair. You know, it's important to me to have that representation. So for this project, I would love to photograph as many women as I can, naked, maybe on analog film, maybe create a book of this. And it's about embracing, you know, your beauty, your inner beauty and your outer beauty, and just, you know, being unapologetic about that. So that's one thing. Another thing, to travel with this, of course, I would love to take this to as many countries as I can get to when the pandemic allows, because this is also something I love. Shooting natural light is something I really love, and shooting in all different types of, you know, surroundings. So that would be another thing. But yeah, those are the 2 main things, I think. Seeing where I can go with it this year, and just seeing if people embrace it, you know, like I hope they'll embrace it. So yes.
That sounds amazing. And I'm really excited to see what's going to happen. And there's a lot of love coming from the chat, but once again, I'm so bad at multitasking. I'm sorry, but a lot of people have been really like enjoying all your projects and think it's amazing and important, and a lot of support coming from the community. I just want to point that out.
Thank you, everyone. That means a lot. Thank you.
And just to wrap this up quickly, where can people find you and what is planned for the future? And yeah, then we already talked for an hour. Time goes by so fast. Yeah. Just so where can people find you and what's the plan for the future, like for the next year?
Okay.
To wrap it up.
So then people can find me on, my social media channels, Zoe Noble Photo. They can learn more about retouching on my YouTube channel, which will be Zoe Noble Photography. So, if you want to get more into retouching, that's absolutely where you should start. And then the goal, with me this year for my education side is to create a course which runs through my process and shows people the right way to retouch, because this is important to me as well as someone who cares about how people are perceived and how they look. And, women's, I don't want people to become alien smooth skins, and I want to embrace those imperfections. Retouching the right way is so important to me. So I'm really, really excited to get that out there. So yeah, if you follow me on the YouTube channel, you'll find out when I launch that. And then you can sign up for more training at my education site, which is zoenoble.education. And I have a newsletter which I try and give as much information on photography, retouching, lighting, marketing, all of it. So yeah, hopefully you can get me on any of those areas, and you can DM me as well if you have questions. Yes. I'm here to help. So
Tim also just posted the links in the chat. I can also completely back up that the newsletter is great because I get the newsletter and I really enjoy it.
Yay.
So yes, thank you so much, Zoe, for joining us again. It was amazing talking to you. And I hope everyone enjoyed our chat as well. Thank you to the community. Thank you for everyone for tuning in. Thank you, Zoe. I hope everyone has a wonderful Friday, sunny Friday, and a lovely, lovely weekend.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.